Fight!
All right, so let's break it down, boys, because now we're at Sea of Thieves and we're pretty much done here. So I stood through what I could. Allow me to break it down for you here. So there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things here that were worthy of your attention. I kind of want to give you all a brief little. Damn, I'm in HD. Holy shit! You can see all. Man, this is like ridiculous right now. You can see all those pores and then some. So let's go ahead and break down what I have for you news wise, and then we'll go from there. Right. So yeah, the Sony as of about an hour ago revealed their DualSense no number controller. DualSense trademark wireless controller. This is what it looks like. We're going from away from a single color controller that we've seen as spec since the spawn of the DualShock controller itself, ultimately here back in '95, or I guess technically '97, into the what is now the DualSense. The DualSense will come. Well, again, we only have this color here revealed. It's two tone with it's majority white with black accents, and may be indicative of how the PS5 will look. We'll see. We don't quite know at this time here. Gone are the colored the colors for each symbol on the controller: cross, circle, square, and triangle, and going for more of a minimalist tone. That way the attention goes towards the color bar that goes next to your touchpad on your DualSense. The DualSense will have your L2 and R2 triggers, but they'll feature haptic feedback, meaning that they'll be able to provide resistance when you're pressing them, as well as when they're just being pressed normally. So certain applications like peeling out in the mud when you're driving a car, or rotating a lever, can all give you a sensation of feedback whenever you're pressing the button. So that will be a unique thing that could be getting a lot of use in PS5 versions of certain games. That's pretty cool right there. Also notice here now that the HD here. Also notice here that the we're going from micro USB on DualShock 4 now to USB-C. Standard. Glad to hear it. Glad to see it. And of course we have that same size touchpad also here. Notice how the light bar, whatever it's called, touch bar, the color thingy is now like a little more subdued and no longer as intrusive or abrasive as it was in the DualShock 4. That's a good thing, in my opinion. Now we have a create button. They in the marketing here, they let you know, or the PR statement, they let you know that it is no longer a share button. It's now a create button. So what that means, I'm trying to think of what that could really mean. Like, obviously this indicative of the fact that like the share functionality will now be expanded upon for PS5 players. So you can do more than just share your moments. You can now create moments. But what that means, I'm not quite sure here. I don't know, honestly. Instagram filters, does that mean like you can now make movies? Does that mean that you'll have like PS5 OS standard third party, or really third person camera freedom, so you can actually create moments? Will you be able to like mix and match assets across various games? Will every game give you a new spec of like the minimum of like Instagram filters? Like you can now use the Spider-Man logo and like create like a mishmash of like a montage or a mirage of things? We don't know. I don't know, honestly. I'm trying to give you guys ideas here, but like ultimately I think the idea is that you will engage more on social media in an organic manner, utilizing whatever Sony throws at you via the PS5 environment. So we'll see. Big quality life improvement here. We have there's now a built-in microphone array and speakers, so you can respond and talk to and engage in online chat rooms over PSN when playing online using your controller alone. Quality won't be the best, obviously, because you're holding your controller pretty far away from your mouth. Like you have to like kind of bring it up, I imagine. I'm not quite sure here, but you obviously can do that in between plugging in your headset, which is nice. Options are always good, I always say. So not mad about that. Glad to see that add in there. It's a pretty nice bump up here. I don't recall other controllers having that functionality, so that's pretty cool. However, this does bring into play the elephant in the room here, which is like, how much will this thing cost? Yikes. Given it's going to have haptic feedback triggers, it's going to have a speaker and microphone array, this is not looking cheap. Not gonna lie to you there, dude. This is looking like $70 USD minimum to me. I don't know, dude. Hopefully, though, I mean that could be minimized ultimately. I would think here, like if the DualShock 4 is backwards compatible with the PS5, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, then that won't be as terrible. But even then, like multiplayer seems to have kind of gone off the wayside anyway, as far back as like 7th generation. I see a lot. I don't know. I don't see split screen being as frequent of a feature in our current generation titles here, minus like I guess Nintendo to a certain extent. And so I don't know. I'm trying to think here, like what game are you even like? Can you even name right now? That's like that its next entry will be next gen. That you're like, man, I wish this has split screen. The only one I can think of here really is I guess like Halo Infinite. But like other than that, I don't even know anymore. And you can see here it's a little more full. I mean, and this is probably not new here, but you can it's a little more full. And when you compare the shape of it to say the DualShock 4, a little more thick, right? So she a little more thick now. I wonder if the ergonomics are superior to the DualShock 4. I'll have to wonder here. But I still ultimately do think that this shape doesn't contour as well as say the if you imagine pretend here that the touchpad is like gone, right? Because obviously the reason there's this big gap in the middle separating the what would otherwise be like a narrower controller horizontally, the touch pad has to be there. It has to be that size to casually allow the accommodation of like a non-precise touching by the idle thumbs on the touchpad, right? So if you have the touchpad there, then you can make the controller a different size ultimately. That's the throttle of how much of the face has been dedicated to an adequate size to accommodate both thumbs being able to interact with the touchpad non-precisely. So it's a pretty big ask in terms of its size, and I'm wondering how much compromise is in there to accommodate that, because I personally don't recall too many games on PS4 making extensive use of this. Same thing for the PS Vita, which also had that backside touchpad technology as well here, and didn't see too much of that going on there either, ultimately. The game that did use it, like I recall here, Hot Shots Golf on PS Vita, was pretty cool, but I do not think that this was like a huge one. It was essentially an underwhelming gimmick that was meant to differentiate above everything else here, but how much practicality and application it had was pretty limited, right? The elephant in the room here is that DualShock 4 had that old doo-doo ass battery life. So hopefully this one is a lot better here. I have seen controllers that like I've seen the controller under intense conditions be as low as 4.5 to 5 hours, which is like pretty embarrassing. So hopefully this is a lot better on that front, because it is pretty immersion ruining ultimately, right? Now the last thing here I want to get into is kind of the other elephant here, which is the name DualSense controller. You may recall here there was a patent that was released out here that the controller may have built-in heart rate monitor technology into it, and so there is a practical application here of detecting player stress via the heart rate, and then having a dynamic difficulty be applied based off of how stressed you are. Whenever you're like knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on his mom's sweater, spaghetti. Whenever all that's going on here and you're getting, bodied by whatever boss may be here, the game can detect that you're, losing your spaghetti and like, hey, give you and throw you a bone. Could be intrusive, could say, hey, look, hey, bro, you're getting bodied. You're kind of nervous right now. That's kind of not cool. Chicks don't be digging these old sweaty ass hands right now. So do you want me to lower difficulty for you? Or it could be, immersive and like, not even tell you and just like, throw you the subconscious, aid. That way you pass and move on from there. So, oh my God. So we'll have to see. Is haptic trigger feedback alone enough to change the entire name of the controller over the last, 5 generations? We'll have to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some new gizmos thrown into this controller to further push it out and give it that differentiating factor from the competition. So we'll have to see. I personally think the controller does look cool. I like the two-tone, honestly. And I'm a little bit intrigued by wondering here if the PS5 cosmetically will look similar with a two-tone. We'll have to see. And beyond that, today on Inside Xbox Live, there wasn't really much going on there. Obviously, here what we were hoping for was details on the Cuphead DLC. The Cuphead DLC was, if I recall correctly, nowhere to be found. Even though the guy was wearing a Cuphead shirt. I mean, it's cool. You can flex your merchandise here, but it's just like nothing to report there though. But at the same time, here it can't be too mad here because we all obviously know that Cuphead is a very labor intensive game to produce with its traditional 2D animation. I'm kind of surprised that FF7 remake did not get delayed. It's still going to be coming from its initial only first delay from March into April 10, coming out this Friday. And really, once again, I have to bring up here. I gotta suck off Nintendo a little bit here. Coming into this now, it's just like you're really seeing how well the Nintendo Directs do work when you see the competition. When you see Sony's State of Play and you see the Inside Xbox, you can kind of see here where I don't know, I guess the pacing is better here. I would say ultimately if I had to rate the three, obviously Directs are the best because they typically have minimal filler and are adequately paced in a good time. Inside Xbox here just tends to not have enough meat and potatoes to justify this level of conference, but hey, you're doing what you can here. There's a little bit of padding going on to beef up the whole thing to last the hour or 30 minutes it's going to last or whatever. PlayStation State of Play is really the one where it's like, man, dude, this feels like a commercial. It feels so impersonal. And you can really see that difference there whenever you just the difference of having a host or an anchor VJ and intro you into each segment feels a lot more personal than when it's just a voiceover telling you, hey, here's the next game, here's a game coming out soon. I don't think we got anything new in the Xbox Series X segment here, where we had that lead engineer guy we've seen before with the epic beard. All we got there is essentially a recap of all stuff we already knew from when the full spec list came out and the Austin Evans video and things like that. Essentially, yeah, Xbox is going to be really, built from the ground up to be pro developer. Developers can get in here and utilize the resources as needed for whatever they want to do. Trying to really make sure that 60 FPS is possible, fast load times are possible. Those features like quick loading, that way you can quickly swap between games, will be a hip nifty new thing. You don't have to think hard about whenever you're committing to exiting a game, you can just pause and resume gaming as much as you want. Once again here, the storage capacity also detailed here. Xbox Series X will have the 1 terabyte manufactured by Seagate full spec NVMe read-write speed expansions, where all Xbox Series X games can be read from, installed to, and played off of both the 1 terabyte memory card and the internal 1 terabyte storage. But of course, here you can also utilize and plug in USB 3.0 accessories, external hard drives, whatever, into the Xbox Series X. The difference here is that, from what we saw so far from the Sony PS4 GDC detail here, is that if you want more storage on your Xbox Series X, your only options are going to be the official Seagate 1 terabyte memory card expansion. So we're going back to essentially proprietary memory technology in 2020. Kind of a boo right there, but hey, it is what it is. We also haven't gotten its price yet, so I just can't see it being less than $50, maybe even $100 still. We'll have to see. Comparatively, PS5 was already detailed that it will use, off-the-shelf NVMe SSDs. However, the spec that they're using is the highest in commercially available, if I recall correctly. And there should be more of those coming for off-the-shelf PC parts later in 2020 and into 2021. So if you want to expand the capacity of your PS5, you will be able to install your own. You're literally getting them off of Newegg or wherever you want to get them from. So it's a little more user accessible in that regard, and that it's non-proprietary for Sony's end. However, it's important. I'm sorry, you're right. PCIe 4.0. There you go. Thank you for that. However, though, Sony's base configuration of storage for the NVMe SSD is less than Xbox. If I recall correctly here, it's about 800 gigabytes compared to the 1 terabyte for Xbox. And you may say, well, whatever, dude, it's almost 1 terabyte. It's not that big of a deal. The situation here though is that these games are getting really big on average now. It would not surprise me if the average game is pushing over the average AAA production game is pushing 50 to 80 gigabytes each. And Call of Duty just like, going way out there with the 110 or whatever it may be. Or Red Dead Redemption 2 also going to the 100 plus gigabyte territory. Beyond that, what else was this direct here? A bunch of games got shown off here. Hotline Miami Collection got announced to come to Xbox Game Pass. Gears Tactics got announced. The thing I was waiting on here. Okay, so actually, I was watching this for quite a while, waiting for we to get more intel on Project Cloud, which is I still think going to be a pretty big differentiating factor for Xbox fans going into this year. But still not much yet. I have not had a chance to look into this or try it out or anything like that. But I can't imagine it does any worse than Google Stadia, which is like already a 0 out of 10 non-relevant product now. So we'll have to see. There was not much else beyond that here, so that's generally about it, and we'll see where that goes. So that's Xbox in a nutshell for you. Still excited for PS5. Still excited for Xbox. I will ultimately be getting probably both this year if I can pre-order both ultimately. And though obviously the question, the elephant in the room, continuously becomes that would I, if I'm getting an Xbox, what games am I looking to play? And the whole thing, that's kind of the hard part, is like, it's pro-consumer in that a lot of the compelling software that I want out of Microsoft's camp won't be Xbox exclusive. It's coming to PC as well. So obviously, if I'm getting Halo Infinite, which I am getting Halo Infinite, and I'm excited for it, I'm going to get it on PC, obviously, right? Unless there's like some really big advantage to it being on Xbox One somehow, like, I don't know, some kind of proprietary thing or whatever it may be here. But ultimately, everything I want, whether it be, Cuphead DLC or Halo Infinite or whatever is released from their acquired studios, I would probably get it on PC ultimately. And it just makes the Xbox as kind of this really hard thing to justify as a crossover. If you're like, if you're already in the PCMR, the PC Master Race, and you're looking to get an Xbox, like, just kind of like, why? If you don't own a PC, then this is like, you're a very accessible way to get into the ultimately that ecosystem to an extent. And also, again, the Xbox Game Pass too, which is also showing compelling value over and over again. I'm continually impressed by it, because now that it's if someone told me here yesterday, actually, now that it's $5 for the PC version, if I recall correctly, I don't know if that's a full pass or not here, but if the pass starts at $5, that's pretty poggers, dude. That's pretty competitive, honestly. I can't complain at that point. Yeah, that's really about it here. So we'll keep an eye out here. Obviously, we're waiting for the day that we get a reveal from Sony when they reveal the whole thing about PS5 and what's to come here, because right now there's still a lot we don't know. Like I'm in Sony's camp for the exclusives. I'm rooting for Xbox because they're being very pro-consumer right now and really trying to show their way that, like, they're trying to win over consumer base by just being, the nicer of the two ultimately here. But there's still not too many compelling reasons to go Xbox at this point. Well, anyways, boys, try hard, clap, and chat here. That is my my recap of all the stuff I had worthwhile here.